very much shocked. Congratulations to Green Tea. I personally owe an apology to AHQ because I'd written them off yesterday. And I said multiple times, I called it out on Twitter, no one expected it. Before we get into the gameplay decisions that ultimately won AHQ the game, I want to go back to picks and bans. I feel that Edward Gaming ran a team composition we don't traditionally see from them. Specifically the Jace mid, not super common in China. Lulu top, while it's not unheard of, it's not the main thing. So let's pull that graphic up onto the screen and Monty talk us through it.
This is really interesting too. You had only played one game on Jace in the LPL previously, and if we talk about these two compositions, when you run this kind of siege comp, and it is a very, very strong siege composition, you're banking on having a mid-game power spike. And actually, EDG hit on that quite nicely, where you want to get kind of one item on your main carries, then start grouping. You can go into two items as well once Lulu's going to get that Lich Bane after the Athenes. Unfortunately, what happened here is that while they did get the outer ring of turrets around, I think they over-prioritized the Baron, which slowed down their push. And we're going to get into itemization a little bit too, but we were talking about it here. Koro, on that Lulu, looked like he was going for the old recipe of Lich Bane, which was Sheen Blasting Wand, and so he ended up with his extra Blasting Wand. But when you delay the Lich Bane like that, that's a lot of potential tower damage that you're wasting, because she needs to be able to proc that on the turret to continue to roll through the towers. Now, late game, what we saw, the Zed can be used as a primary form of engage because everybody's so squishy. And not only that, but the hooks. And I know we're all really eager to talk about FZZF's, frankly, terrible itemization that game.
Yeah, Crepo, I know you've been loving
I just actually want to just add one more thing to the team composition. Maybe a longer range AD carry would have been better. Yes,
yeah.
The Cullen works to get people off the tower, but you already have Jace with Lulu poke on top of that, Janna shields for the Jace poke. Maybe just a Caitlyn or something. If you're going for this raw 20-minute grouping siege comp, get a long range AD carry, because those towers need to fall. If they don't, this will happen.
And when we've seen other teams kind of run these early siege compositions as well, if you go with Lucian, what Naj and White Shield will do is get first item Bloodthirster. Because of that short range, it allows him to walk up to the turrets and take a little bit of harass while he procs his passive.
And Caitlyn gets caught a little less easy.
So let's talk about the items. I know Kobe was saying let's discuss the itemization, FCZF in particular.
Crepo, I'll give you the break. I know you've shouted enough about how these items hurt your heart a little bit. So the first thing let's talk about is the Magi Soul Stealer pickup. 1,235 gold. You're playing a siege comp where you're not even looking to get kills in the first place. He had 1 to 0 stacks for like 90% of the game. Not a good pick. Also spent 1,835 gold going from tier 1. Not Frostfang, but Spell Thief's Edge into Frost Queen's Claim. Didn't do much with that either. The slow is not exactly important. However, Talisman of Ascension could have been great. So there's 3,000 gold spent on not a Mikhail's Crucible. In fact, we have a replay of why Mikhail's Crucible would be so darn good, because the hooks were great. So basically, Name, on the short-range Lucian that you guys were all talking about, is going to get hooked by Green Tea. It was either find a flank or find an engage. They found an engage. So let's roll the clip out. The hook on the Name starts everything. And of course, there's nothing that he could ever possibly do. He predicts the dash backwards, jumps on in, and then, oh look, Flay into box. Oh look, Zed's on top of you. And there's not enough to do to save his life anymore. Jinx Rocket is just there to help. In fact, Green Tea had 1 kill and like 6 assists all game. Was just there to get the first kill going through. And at this point, there's just no persistent damage output left. So of course, the comp's going to work out.
Yeah, and if you look at AHQ's composition, the only thing they can do is either flank with Lee Sin or land one of these hooks, or have Zed split push become so strong that they can't deal with it. But props to Green Tea though, like he was the one way back into this game, and he landed 2 really important hooks, and that basically won his team again.
Before I throw this crumbs, just very quickly, of course, we did see EDG in map control for 30-35 minutes of the game. It was only after those team fights that AHQ got themselves back into it. Crumbs, care to add more on the discussion?
I was actually going to talk about the crowd. I thought that Green Tea sure was the MVP, but the crowd really, after that fight, they're going wild. And you saw at the interview right at the end, they're just like AHQ all the way. And I really think that after that, you could tell how EDG was playing more demoralized while AHQ was playing much more confidently. And I think that the home field advantage is definitely something that can bring them to quarterfinals.
I do not want to take anything away from AHQ. They played well. They held off the siege from Edward Gaming. You cannot deny that for any amount. However, Edward Gaming ran a team composition that is always risky. Poke comps have failed many times in the LCS. Do you think if Edward Gaming lose to Samsung White, and we see this tiebreaker later in the day, if Edward Gaming had run a slightly different style of composition, the same scenario would have played out. I mean, I know it's a difficult question to ask. It's just we haven't seen a full-on Siege/Poke comp yet this Worlds.
I don't know. It's really interesting because we talk about EDG as a late-game team, but it seemed like after they got the outer ring down, they didn't have the best prioritization of objectives. And even in the ultra-late game as well, when they were tooling around Baron right there, you just set up for more siege. You can only do that one thing. You don't have that risk. And the itemization that we keep talking about around that too, the sensor is not what you need in that situation. The Crucible, okay, because here's why. We have 2 QSSs on your carries, on mid and AD carry. Those are used to get rid of Deathmark, which means, because that's one of the forms of engage, which means you need a Crucible to get rid of hooks, because you don't want to QSS the hook and then have Zed go on you. But AHQ did set up those engages very nicely.
That they did. All right, guys, we do need to move this one along. So we're coming up on Game 5 of today's Worlds group stage. So let's actually take a look at where these teams stand after our first 4 matches. With that incredible win, AHQ are now 3-3 in Group A, meaning if Edward Gaming lose to Samsung White in the last game of the day, we will have that tiebreaker. Over on the other side of the coin, you do have Team Solo Mid 4-1 coming up against SK Gaming in the next match. So in order for Team Solo Mid to force the tiebreaker for first place, they have to beat SK Gaming. So that's the way these two groups break it down. We're going to start rolling this one on in just a moment or two because, of course, we do have to go to an ad break in just a second as the teams are getting themselves ready to play. It will be SK Gaming from Europe, seed number 3, taking on Team Solo Mid from North America, and of course, seed number 1. We're going to take some shots from the venue, I believe. Freddy and Svenskeren, can they carry the rest of SK Gaming in the penultimate game of the day? And of course, Odd One, along with Reggie, talking to the team.
Face take that one, there's the damage coming in, it's a flash, I don't think it's enough, Howling Gale left, and then he's in absolute to the tower though! They're calling Name instead, it's been knocked though, into the box, Deathmark's going down, they're gonna get the kill, this could be it for HQ! This is real bad news once again, but where's the back of the Monsoon comes out, here comes Westar, he's GA will get bumped, and Name is down and out! Nexus story number 1 goes down, Deathmark on to Koro, he will use the wild growth, they gotta take down these Nexus stories, still 20 seconds to the rest of FTZF takes a burst, Koro is still in there, on the Nexus!